started. I'm Bob Summers. Hello. And since we have such a packed house here, we might actually have some time to have a little introduction from you as well. So, what do you work at, and what do you do?
Great. So my name is Kevin, and I am a enterprise product manager. I do bonus compensation for lots of the Fortune 500 companies, so all their bonus payments go through me. And I've been in product management for about 3 or 4 years.
Okay, great. And is there something you're hoping to get out of this session?
It just attracted to me, so
Okay.
I waited for it
Okay,
and see what comes out of it.
Thanks, Kevin.
I'm John. I'm a products and marketing executive. Currently, I'm actually consulting, but I've spent about a decade plus in cybersecurity, and most recently served a year doing IoT type products.
Cool.
In terms of what I wanted to get out of this, Agile has always been kind of a bemusing thing in the companies I've worked for. It's either been, militant and thou shalt, or it's been lip service and not followed, or some interesting weird hybrid. And so I thought this might be interesting.
Okay. Thanks, John. We're not going to get too much into what Agile is.
No, yeah, that I get, yeah.
So we're going to talk mainly about trust. And we got 2 people, so we can do some trust falls.
Good.
Yeah, we'll skip the trust falls.
You first.
Yeah. All right, so I have some notes too. This is the first time I'm doing this.
Hey,
So
bob@potus.com was your email address.
that is my email address, yes.
How did you get that email? Like, how did you get that domain?
Well, for my grad school, I built a site about presidents of the United States, and I bought the domain 20-some years ago, and now I can have that email address. So I can see that's going to keep, all right. So before we get started, in your organizations or in an organization you recently were at, think about where you were on a level of like a 1 to 100 and how much you were trusted, how much your team was trusted within the organization. You don't have to share it, so you can be as honest as you want. Just think of a number. Just kind of put that aside. You can write it down if you want. We'll come back to that a little bit later, but I just want to just think about that for a bit. Okay, let's do that. All right. All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about Agile, and just to remind everyone, hopefully you've seen this before, the Agile Manifesto. Individuals and interactions over process and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, or responding to change over following a plan. We're going to look at how these contribute to trust. This isn't all there is to trust, but there is some of this. And so as we go through some of the elements of trust, you can think about how these play into that. And, just as a caveat, hopefully we know this, that the items on the left are more important than the items on the right. But it doesn't mean that the items on the right have no value. Hi. All right, trust. So why is it important to be trusted? Why do you think we want to be trusted in our organizations? What is the benefit of that? What do we get out of that?
Less need to explain things, more efficiency.
More efficiency, for sure. Any other? We want to be able to influence, right? We want to be able to contribute to innovation. We want to contribute to the roadmap. The bottom line is, by having trust, we're going to get the stakeholders that we're working with to work with us and not against us or around us. So when someone says to you, trust me, what's the first thing you think? Jazz hands.
No, like, why do you need to say that?
Yeah.
Like,
The first thing that comes into your mind is, all right, now all of a sudden I'm on alert and I don't trust you.
right.
So you can't ask for trust and you can't demand trust. It does have to be earned. So when we think of trust, another trust is also used kind of in banking as a bank. So we're going to talk about a trust savings account. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making some deposits, taking some actions that build trust so that we can later withdraw. If we withdraw before we have any balance, we're not going to get anywhere. So there's my little drawing of a bank. What are some words that you think of when we talk about trust? When you hear the word trust, what are some words associated with trust?
I would say something like oneness or warmth, but it's kind of,
Oneness and warmth.
yeah, like a personal touch to it.
Commitment?
Commitment. Any other words?
Confidence?
Confidence. Usually I hear things like integrity and honesty.
I think I heard that coming from the back of the room.
Any other words in the back of your mind, front of your mind, tip of your tongue?
Speak for those who aren't here.
And there's a lot more words too, and we're going to go through some of them. Stephen Covey wrote a book called The Speed of Trust, the one thing that changes everything. He defines trust as equal parts character and competence. And things like integrity and honesty would fall into the character. For the purpose of product management, I like to add another word into there, which is communication. He kind of lumps communication. He has parts of communication in character and competence. There's definitely a lot of overlap. But I think of this in terms of three parts, which is communication, character, and competence. And we're going to start by talking about communication. I want to point out that there's this green arrow around communication because through this step, we're going to be making a deposit into our trust savings account. So some of the things associated with this, first, listening. Communication is not just about transmitting, it's primarily about listening. And hopefully as product managers, we all know that we have to listen, otherwise we're not going to be delivering what needs to be delivered. Creating transparency. If for some reason it's been 3 weeks since our stakeholders have heard any progress reports from us, do we think that they're going to trust that progress is being made? This kind of goes to one of the Agile principles. If you don't show anything, you haven't done anything. Talking straight. So one of the things some people fall into is if they use a lot of technical jargon with someone who does not understand technical jargon, someone on the marketing team, they're not going to trust that you're really trying to communicate with them. They think you might be pulling the wool over their eyes or trying to make them feel bad about themselves because they don't understand it. So we're not really talking straight to them. The other part of talking straight is the next one, confronting reality. So if there's a problem with the work that someone's doing, you need to communicate that to them. You can't ignore it, you can't let it foster. And sometimes it might feel like by confronting reality, you're actually making withdrawal from this trust, but you're actually building trust. I had a coworker, she started one of the companies I worked for, and we had just had a huge price increase. We almost doubled our prices. This was 20 years ago or something. And we had this low introductory rate. We wanted to get market share, and then we were getting market share. So we increased it from $50 a month to $95 a month. in our customers' eyes, it was a doubling of it, not $45. They were getting plenty of value for it. But then she went out and she was going to these association meetings and taking questions. And someone asked her, in anger, how high are you going to raise these rates? And her response, confronting the reality of the situation, was, we're going to raise them as high as we can so that you're still receiving value and you'll still pay us. And she did. They kept raising the rates year after year until it was 10 times the $50 a month. And we didn't lose the customers because she had built the trust with those customers. Clarifying expectations. So we want to know exactly what we're building, and our stakeholders want to know that we're building what they want us to build. And if those two aren't meshed, then they're not going to trust that we know how to deliver on what we need to deliver. And if we don't ask the question, we don't communicate to get those expectations, then we're not going to be able to meet those expectations because we don't know what they are. But we are still going to be held to them. So we do need to communicate, active listening. So what you're saying is you're expecting this, so that we're both on the same page. And the last one, much softer skill, is appreciating others. A thank you or a good job to someone is going to go a long way to building a relationship, and really trust is about building relationships. And it doesn't take a lot. In fact, you can, if you really want to go the extra mile to build trust, send an email to their boss and let them know what a good job they did, and copy them on it. You'll have their support for a very long time. All right, character. Once again, we have a green arrow. We're making another deposit. We are going to demonstrate respect. And notice I didn't say respect others. This is more than just saying you're going to respect someone. You have to demonstrate it. So what are the ways that we can demonstrate respect? Any ideas on how we do that?
Honoring commitments.
Honoring commitments, yeah. So some of the other things is treat people the way you want to be treated. Very simple stuff, the golden rule. Be polite, be kind. Don't make jokes at other people's expense. You know, it might be funny, the rest of the team might think it's funny, but that one person who's the butt of that joke isn't going to appreciate that, and you're going to lose them. Encouraging people to contribute their own ideas, right? So, and if they're good ideas, actually using them. And then when you use their ideas, make sure that they get the credit and tell them they did a good job. Appreciate them for what they've done. Practicing accountability. You want to hold your team to account. You want to hold everyone to account equally. You don't want to give some people a pass and other people's not a pass. And you don't want to blame others when it's really your responsibility. And usually you don't want to blame others even if it's not your responsibility. You want to show that you can right wrongs. We all make mistakes, but you need to be able to admit those mistakes and then show how you're going to make sure those mistakes don't happen again. Loyalty. Again, not throwing anyone under the bus. As a product manager, you want to take the responsibility, but then you still want to confront reality. You still want to have conversations with those people to make sure that that doesn't happen again. If someone had come to you and said, you know, I can't believe we shipped this, it had all these bugs in it. I'm so sorry. We'll take some corrective steps to make sure that doesn't happen again. And then you you address it, but you don't throw people under the bus. Be passionate. If I don't care, why should you? And then you want to extend trust as well. Let people have the opportunity to show you that they can communicate, that they have character, and that they're competent. But understand that they're not all going to be at the same emotional intelligence level that you are. They're going to come at it from their own perspective, their own abilities, but still appreciate and recognize it. All right, competence. This is one that a lot of people don't really think of when they think of trust. They usually think of the character components of it. Again, this is another deposit, another green arrow. You know, if I hire a plumber to come to my house and fix a leaking pipe, and he could be the greatest guy, have great character, but if he says, wow, I've never fixed a pipe before, you're not really going to trust that they're going to be competent enough to get the job done. So you be watching them, and so competence is very important. Are you delivering results? Whether it's financial results, delivering the product on time, part of the keeping the commitments part of this. This goes to the commitments that you were talking about right here. And are you continuously improving both the product and yourself? Righting the wrongs and things like that. If you aren't able to show the competence, people are going to find ways to go around you and your team. So going back to the Agile Manifesto, when we look at these 4 items, individuals, interactions, over process and tools, which one of the 3 do you think this falls into? Communication, character, competence.
I don't understand the question.
So we talked about character, communication, character, and competence.
Right.
So this first item, individuals and interactions over
Oh, okay.
process and
Which one is
tools,
that?
which of the 3 of those do you think that falls into?
Communication.
I think so too. Communication. How about the next one? Working software over comprehensive documentation. Yeah. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation.
Communication and character.
Definitely communication. In fact, I would argue that all 4 of these have a component of character in them. They all do blend together. You have to have the character to follow these because sometimes it's not easy to do that. So to be able to stick to your guns and show the loyalty. Responding to change is part of the competence. But again, they all have character associated with them. So now that we've talked about communication, character, and competence, now we can work on our team, whoever our team is. It can be our team of product managers or product owners or the developers, or it can be a cross-functional team. You have a team, and to build the team, you are making deposits as you're building a team because you're building the trust account with that team. But the steps to do that also require some withdrawals. So, first, lead by example. The rules that apply to you should be the same rules that apply to the rest of the team. And you should be exhibiting the communication, character, and competence, and your team should see you doing that, and then they will emulate that. Collaborate. When you bring the team together to collaborate, not only do you get a better product, but it gives the rest of the team the opportunity to see the communication, character, and competence from those other people on the team. So they are able to then build trust as well. And if they're building their own individual trust, then you're building the trust for the team. You want to be able to work on any project because you certainly don't want to say to someone, we couldn't meet that deadline because Billy was on vacation. So you need to be able to have a team that's cross-functional, depending on how the team is structured. And you want to balance the load, because if someone's not pulling their weight and you're not doing anything about it, the team's not going to trust you to lead the team, and they're also not going to trust that the team is able to accomplish the goals they need to accomplish. Okay, so the next thing we want to work on, once we have the team, is we can work on the product strategy. This is something that we all want to do. Sometimes the strategy comes from external forces. We don't have control over it, but we at least want to be involved in it. To be involved in it means that we're being trusted, because we have the knowledge as a product manager, but we have a trust from people that are creating that strategy that we can contribute market knowledge and the rest. So we want to be involved, but what we really want to do is lead it, which requires a larger withdrawal. And if we don't have the balance, we don't have the trust, we're not going to be able to do that, which makes the deposits that much more important. And then contributing the product metrics to that strategy is actually a deposit. We're seen as a subject matter expert. We are showing that we do understand the market, we do understand the product, and we can make deposits. And then we can innovate. We can take some risks. It requires a much larger withdrawal, but we've earned it. Through all the steps that we've taken, those at the top with the purse strings are now going to say, all right, you've got this idea, and you've shown that you're competent. You're going to communicate with me what you're doing, and I know you're a person of good character, so I'm going to let you run with this $5 million, $500 million, however big the innovation is going to be. So, we have all of this. So, how do we do this? First, we start by making deposits. A lot of green arrows there. So, first, we need to review the count. We need to look at ourselves in the mirror. That's what that is supposed to be a drawing of. Review your account. Where does it stand? Do you have a positive balance? Taking a look at communication, character, and competence for yourself, but also for those that you work with, your team, because you are seen sometimes as an individual, but sometimes as a group as well. And then start making deposits. Find little ways to make deposits in each of these. And by looking in the mirror, you might say, I need to work more on the character part, or I need to work more on the communication part. And you can focus on those. You can take little steps. Look for opportunities. And then work with your team. And that means you have to communicate what you're doing. You have to say, we're going to be working on trust, because for whatever reason, maybe you don't have as much as you want. You want to move that forward. So improve the team. And have the team taking those steps towards better communication.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So if you say that, you're like, hey, I want to work on trust this week because, I don't know if you all trust me as much as I hope for, or I don't know if we all trust each other as much as we hope for, I don't trust you guys. Like, how do you say that?
Well, the reason now I gave this presentation to my team, and I had a team of 5 product managers working for me. And the reason this came up is because I was getting feedback from the president of the division saying, I'm hearing problems with so-and-so, I'm hearing problems with so-and-so. And I was hearing from the product manager saying, why aren't we being allowed to go talk to our customers? Only marketing gets to go talk to the customers, and we want to be the one, we need that feedback directly from them. Mm-hmm. And so then the president said, well, we already know all this information, we don't need you to go out there. So there was and that's what got me thinking about where is the disconnect here? And so once I was able to kind of boil it down to this idea of trust, I sat them down and said, you're frustrated, the people that are our stakeholders are frustrated. Now, I can't do anything about them, but we as a group can take steps to move forward. And what we are lacking right now is credibility. We don't have the trust, for whatever reason that might be. I recently had a conversation with the same president, and like I said, this was probably 5, 6 years ago, and I just had a conversation with him last week, and I asked him about this again. I said, what was going on at that time? And his first thought was, every time we said we wanted to do something, the product managers would come back and say, no, that's not how we should do it. So there was this disconnect. The way that we were communicating was ineffective, and we weren't building character as well. And then every time they wanted to do something, it was late, so we weren't keeping our commitments. Some of that wasn't necessarily in our control, but it didn't matter. Ultimately, it's our responsibility. So I did have a conversation. I said, I want to have a conversation here about trust. I want to go through this, get your feedback on this. So there has to be something that precipitates it. Or some examples that you can point to and say, here's an area that we need to work on. And you can do it as a big bang like I did, or you could break it down into smaller chunks. You could say, I've noticed that maybe our communication isn't as good as it needs to be. We aren't creating the visibility that we need in the work that we're doing. So let's work on that. And they might not know it's towards building trust yet, but it will eventually have that outcome. So that's one way to do it. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that. Does that answer your question?
It does, thank you.
Okay. So you want to get the team up to speed, and then taking steps to improve the product. So I worked at a company that had boats, so that's why there's boats on the screens there. But find something that you can make an incremental improvement on, something small that you can call a win. So you can start building that competence in terms of delivery. One of the things that was one of our main issues is we had too many projects going on at the same time, so we couldn't keep up with all of them. So we had to start cutting them, saying, okay, we communicated this. We need to prioritize these, and we're going to limit this to, I had five product managers, 5 projects. That's all we can work on, instead of the 10 or 15 things that we had going on. Get some wins on that. And then you get to start innovating. Ta-da! It's so easy. That's actually all I have. It was actually much shorter than I thought. But are there any questions?
I could talk about like a situation I'm in,
Sure.
but I wouldn't want to go into that until any other questions were. Okay. So I'm kind of going through, we've had a lot of like boards and team changes in my team over the past 2 months. And I'm in a situation where I'm getting a lot of heat from my new manager to just crank out product, like not even like software, just product stuff. And I've been essentially completely dispassionate. I saw that passion was one of the elements, and just kind of withdrawn from the team because I've been just like heads down, and then scheduling and then talking with customers, and just completely away from the team and not even like engaging with them at all. And I guess, I fear that that's just crippling everything, and I have no idea how to manage the situation.
So what kind of team do you normally work with? Is it?
I have a scrum team of 6 people.
Okay. But the work that you're doing now is not really connected to them.
It's related to them, so I'm doing mostly working on future features, like getting those ready because the team's actually ready for them now, but they're working on tech debt.
Okay. And so tell me again, what is the problem that you're working on? It's your manager is now saying he has you head down working on.
Right, and then whenever we talk about it, he's all over the place and just disagrees with me. So I'm getting nowhere with my work, and I also feel like I'm getting nowhere with my team.
Okay. That's a tough situation, for sure. Have you had a conversation, do you have a relationship with your new manager?
Kind of.
Do you respect him?
No.
Time to look for a new job.
It might be. Have you thought about having a conversation with him about it? Is he the kind of person that would be open to that kind of conversation?
He would be open to it, but he's extremely sensitive. And so if he sensed that like a personal connection with someone is done, then it goes south really, really fast. And I've seen that
It goes south with a personal connection.
No, so if he senses, like, if I like basically told him that I don't trust his judgment, or like I don't.
Probably not the way to open
Right,
the
right.
conversation. But
Right, so I've tried to go about it like around specific things. Like he'll make a claim that is completely wrong, sometimes without verifying it. Sometimes even when he knows it's wrong, and I'll point out these things and like, hey, this is really like upsetting for me because like you're not only disagreeing with me in front of the whole team, but you're also wrong. Like it just gets to me, and those conversations really haven't gone anywhere at all. And so, and I don't trust him.
You don't trust him, and that's hard. I mean, if you.
Is this view shared by the team?
Good question.
It's been shared by other people, but I haven't asked anyone directly whether or not they trust or respect him.
Well, you've got to be careful with that too. The last thing you want to be seen is out there inciting a riot.
Exactly.
You don't want to be
So
undermining.
I know my last team member, previous product manager who left, had the same opinion, and I know that people on like our next team over who work with him occasionally have the same opinion, but I don't know if the developers and the QA staff if they have that opinion.
Do you have a relationship with any of his peers?
A little bit. I mean, I reached out to his peer, basically asked her if I can move to our team. In a more diplomatic way than that.
I mean, my 2 cents is at some point, it's not going to be enjoyable if you don't get this fixed in
Right.
terms of just you enjoying your role.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not going to be able to, at some level, enjoy your role, it's going to be hard for you to be effective and successful,
Right.
which makes it hard for your team to be effective and successful. So at some point, you either need to resign yourself to being miserable,
Right.
or have the stones to, have a one-on-one with the guy and, come up with a way of saying, look, we can be more successful together how about we try X? And to your point, if you can set up some, not examples, but ideas here's a couple of ideas of how we can get started. Things that he'll agree with. They could be stupid, but just, again, small wins, small successes, get people nodding, in the right direction. But if you can do something that's in his self-interest and say, hey, I know it's important that your team is seen to be successful at blah, how about we do this and we can probably deliver, in less time or whatever, but invent, if you have to, some way of packaging up a win.
Okay.
And so that you can establish a pattern of let's work together, maybe more privately, one-on-one, ahead of pronouncements in front of a larger audience where we end up saying things or committing to things that maybe aren't so wise. But anyway, my point is simply if you can come up with a way to get him to believe that you're operating in his best interests, that'll go a long way towards being able to manage up.
Okay.
That's the toughest thing, coaching up. It's not just managing, it's trying to get him to stop telling falsehoods and stop interrupting meetings and things like that. That's part of who this person is, and that's tough to coach out.
Super hard.
And confronting reality is really difficult. You can build a lot of trust with it, though, because it is so difficult. People recognize how difficult that is.
Mhm.
If you are that miserable and you don't want to be miserable anymore, then I'm not sure how much you have to lose by having that confrontation. And it doesn't have to be a confrontation, but having a frank and honest conversation.
Mhm.
It might end up that you are looking for work. But it sounds like it's pretty miserable the way things are right now.
Yeah.
And if you can't find a peer of that person that can help you with that, I mean, I don't know how effective it's going to be to go to his boss or go to HR. I don't know how effective those options are going to be. But it could give you some cover when you do have that conversation with them as well.
Oh, if I do the HR or his boss first.
Yeah, if you say, listen, I'm not making this your problem, but I want you to be aware I'm having a situation with my boss, and I'm going to have a conversation with him about it.
Mhm.
I'm not expecting anything from you, but I want you to know.
Okay.
But again, you first have to be in a place mentally where you're prepared that this might be the beginning of the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, because it could be.
There's a
Some
whole
companies
grieving
have great
process.
HR, and some companies, HR is nothing more than a conduit back to your boss immediately before you get back to your office.
If their job is to protect the company.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Despite what they might say.
Yeah, it's not for protecting the employees, it's for protecting the company.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you interact with them, but they might be progressive enough to give you ideas on how to go about doing that, but I doubt it.
Okay.
I wouldn't put my eggs in that basket.
It's a hard situation you're articulating. It really is.
Yeah,
I appreciate the support.
you're very welcome, and good luck, because that's a tough one.
And in some ways, I mean, in all seriousness, if you decide that you're going to leave, by all means, absolutely have the conversation and put effort into giving it your best shot. Because frankly, you won't in your career get a lot of these situations to quote practice with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So if you're already, deciding to do it, be a class act and see if you can't, fix the problem. Even if you decided to leave.
Mhm.
Because you've got nothing to lose, and it's great experience, and I guarantee you'll learn something from it.
Makes for a great interview story, too.
Yeah.
And if miraculously you somehow manage to turn the whole thing around, well, hallelujah.
Also a great interview story.
Great interview story, and to the extent, it's a small professional world, regardless of what industry you're in, to the extent, stories of your efforts, leak to your peers. I mean, stuff like that gets remembered. And even if, and the other side effect is, not that it's your fault, but if you leave and have that conversation, and your leaving in some way is painful to your manager, because even if it's just as simple as because now he's under-resourced,
Mhm.
the fact that he might put some effort into making it better after your departure will also be remembered by your peers. So,
Okay.
like I said, I think you've got a lot to gain if you decide to leave, to still go down the path of trying.
Right. Okay.
Be a pro about it, of course, but
Right.
But we're not saying you should be planning on leaving.
no.
But if that is,
Right.
I'm just
might
saying,
have
if you
to-
decide to leave, don't just walk out the door, because I think
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
stuff that would benefit you and
Yeah, I've talked with someone about, like a coach about this, and she was saying that, like, try to make the situation right, like, because it's probably like, because like if I'm having a problem, it's all like my personal thing, so I can at least accept it personally and then move on, rather than trying to fight it. So.
having recently left a company I worked at for a very long time, there's still a grieving process that goes along with that.
Yeah.
You have to go through those stages.
Good point. I'll keep that in mind.
Not a lighthearted decision. It's a weighty issue for sure.
thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I didn't have time to add this link for the survey, but and I'm not expecting to win the best presentation, 'cause I don't think I have the
Well,
votes
certainly
to
not
win.
on number of votes.
No, but I would love some feedback if you're willing to take the time to fill out the survey. I'd appreciate that.
How does that come out? You post it.
How does the
Yeah, where do
survey
you get
come
the
out?
survey link?
Oh, the survey links.
Yeah, Brendan said on the website there's a link
Yeah.
that,
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't
I haven't seen it yet, but he said it's obvious.
Yeah, and yeah, this is the first time I've given this presentation outside of the company, so.
You had mentioned we can get a copy of this? How?
I didn't, but you can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
Putting words in your mouth.
if you send me an email or connect to me via LinkedIn, I can definitely send you a copy. It's on Prezi. Send you- Sorry? Yeah, it's bob@potus.com is my email.
That's right.
And I love your shirt, by the way. It's very POTUSy.
Yeah, I either get that or very Texas-y.
That's true.
Is there any background to the shirt?
Nah, I've always been kind of a flag-waving patriot, and I just liked it.
And you get lots of comments on it.
Not lots, but occasional.
I don't get any comments on this. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.